Hey there everyone, so Gemini 2.5 Flash, the recently released model, has ranked 4th place in the ArcAGI public dataset, just below Deepseek v30324. So I have planned it to compare it against GPT 4.1 mini. But many of you guys have said that you wanted to see comparison against Deepseek v30324. So that is it. In this video, we'll be comparing all of these models. And we'll be seeing how close do GPT 4.1 mini and Gemini 2.5 Flash come to Deepseek v30324, despite being mini-sized models. Let's look at the pricing of all three models. So Deepseek v30324 is priced at $0.27 per million input tokens and $1.10 per million output tokens. And GPT 4.1 mini has a slightly higher pricing at $0.40 per million input tokens and $1.60 per million output tokens. And lastly, Gemini 2.5 Flash, it is the cheapest at $0.15 per million input tokens and $0.60 per million output tokens. So with that being said, let's start with the testing. We'll be looking at reasoning, max and then coding. So first is the water tank question. Here Deepseek scores 6 out of 10. And next, GPT 4.1 mini scores an impressive 9 out of 10. And the last is Gemini 2.5 Flash with just 4 out of 10. Next question is the letters question. Here Deepseek scores a 8 out of 10 and GPT 4.1 performs bad here with just getting 1 correct out of 10. Same is true for Gemini 2.5 Flash which scores 2 out of 10. Next up is the connect the dots question. Here Deepseek scores a 4 out of 10 but GPT 4.1 mini again impresses us with 9 out of 10. But Gemini 2.5 Flash performance is same like Deepseek, actually a bit worse with 3 out of 10. Next up is the grids question. Here Deepseek scores a 7 out of 10. And GPT 4.1 mini scores a 5 out of 10 and Gemini 2.5 Flash scores a whopping 7 out of 10. Next up is the hardest question, that is the seating arrangement question, and as expected here all models scores a 0. Next up is the 64 tennis players question. Here Deepseek scores just 3 out of 10, GPT 4.1 mini 2 out of 10, Gemini 2.5 Flash scores a 1 out of 10. These are very low scores, so we can assume they were not able to reliably solve this question and we're just guessing out of the options. So now let's look at the total scores. So that is 28 out of 60 for Deepseek v3, 26 out of 60 for GPT 4.1 mini and just 7 out of 60 for Gemini 2.5 Flash. GPT 4.1 really comes very close to Deepseek, but the champion is, as you know, Deepseek v30324. Let's look at max. How did they perform in max? Let's look at level 1 max question. Here Deepseek v3 scores a 9 out of 10. Then comes GPT 4.1 mini which scores a 10 out of 10. And then Gemini 2.5 Flash which again scores a 10 out of 10. Next up is the earnings problem which is quite hard. And here Deepseek scores a 3 out of 10. GPT 4.1 scores just 1 out of 10. And Gemini 2.5 Flash it scores a 3 out of 10. Next is the shaded circle question. Here Deepseek v3 scores a 10 out of 10. Same stands true for GPT 4.1 and Gemini 2.5 Flash. Both score a 10 out of 10. Finally, the hard geometry question. Here Deepseek scores just 1 out of 10 but GPT 4.1 mini scores a 3 out of 10 and Gemini 2.5 Flash it surprises us with a whopping 8 out of 10. So now if we look at the total scores, that is 22 out of 40 for Deepseek, 24 out of 40 for GPT 4.1 mini and 31 out of 40 for Gemini 2.5 Flash. Gemini 2.5 Flash really performed nice. I think generating a lot of chain of thought tokens seems to be the key in performing good in max. Because in one prompt, Gemini 2.5 Flash generated these many tokens. At this point, can we call them a non-thinking model? Anyways, what about coding? Let's get into the coding section. Okay, so we have the Gemini 2.5 Flash on the left, GPT 4.1 mini in the middle and Deepseek v30324 on the right. I have disabled the thinking mode on Gemini 2.5 Flash preview. Let's get started. So we'll start things simple. We'll ask write a snake game in Python using PyQt5. Let's see which model gives us a better response. We have got the response from all models. Let's start with Gemini 2.5 Flash. Most probably all models should be able to give us the working code because it's a very simple question. Let's run the code. That's it. Let's paste to restart and you can see the game is actually working. Let's see what happens when we hit the wall and game over, space to restart. That is a working code, guys. Okay, now let's move on to GPT 4.1 mini. Let's copy the code, let's paste that and let's run it. That works, guys, as expected. Let's see what happens when we hit a wall and game over, R to restart. Absolutely awesome. Let's move on to Deepseek v3. Let's copy the code, let's paste that and let's run it. That is a working code. So all these models were able to do that. Let's see what happens when we hit a wall, and game over, R to restart. Absolutely awesome. Now let's level up the game. Now we are asking that the snake should have a zigzag movement like an actual snake. Also, the snake head should look like that of an actual snake. Let's send this to all three models. We've got the response from all models. Let's start off with Gemini 2.5 Flash. Let's copy the code. Okay, so immediately we don't see any kind of errors. Let's run this, and okay, this is what we have got. I think the triangular head is actually opposite, and it has tried to implement the undulating movement, but I don't think it was able to do that very well. Let's see what happens when we collide with the wall, and game over. Nice. Let's see what GPT 4.1 has come up with. Let's copy the code from GPT 4.1. Let's paste that, and immediately we don't see any kind of errors. That's nice. Let's run that. And okay, that is kind of weird, guys. I mean, the movement is like that of a snake, and also the head is like that of a snake, but the snake is kind of endless at this point. I would say that it's a broken game actually. But it looks good though. It does look like a racetrack. Let's move on to Deepseek v3. Let's copy the code. Let's paste that and let's run it. Okay. I think the snake's head is triangular, and we also have two eyes as well. That is nice. Comparatively it's better, I guess. Not sure of the snake's body though. Let's see what happens when we hit the wall, and game over. That is nice. So Deepseek was better in this one, guys. Let's move on to the next question. Next question is, can you code a dragon using HTML, CSS and JS? So side view of the dragon and give your best implementation in one single code. Let's send this to all three models and let's see what we get. Okay everyone, we have got the responses from all models. Starting off with Gemini 2.5 Flash. Let's copy the code, open up in a HTML viewer and let's paste it. And okay, this is what we have got. I think this is the head, guys. It's not very clear though. These are most probably the wings. This is the body, the legs, the tail, but everything seems disconnected. Let's see what GPT 4.1 mini has come up with. Let's copy the code, open up a HTML viewer and let's paste it. Okay, so we can clearly distinguish this as a dragon. This is the eye. I think this is the beak, guys. We have the neck, body, legs. It looks more like a bird though, instead of a dragon. Anyhow, whatever it has designed, it has come up with. We clearly distinguish this as an animal though. Let's see what Deepseek has come up with. We can directly hit run. So this is what Deepseek has come up with. Comparatively, I would say that GPT 4.1 mini was better in this one. It looks very good. And Gemini 2.5 Flash response seems closer to Deepseek ones. So the best one I would say is from GPT 4.1, followed by Deepseek, and then at last we have Gemini 2.5 Flash. Let's move on to the next question. The next question is, build absolutely the best implementation of the Super Mario game in a web page without using any external assets and in one single code. Let's send this to all three models and let's see what they come up with. Okay, we have got the responses from all models. Starting off with Gemini 2.5 Flash. Let's open up the HTML viewer. Let's paste the code and let's see. Okay, so this is what Gemini has come up with. It looks very basic though, although it's functional. There's nothing much to say about this. Let's see what GPT 4.1 mini has come up with. Let's copy the code, open up HTML viewer, and okay, that looks good. We also have sound. We're not able to jump high enough though. Anyways, let's move on to Deepseek. Let's copy the code, let's paste it, and okay, that looks like something. Super Mario Web. Start the game. Instantly we can see that it's significantly better than what these other two models have come up with. Although I would say that by the way they look, I would say GPT 4.1 is more closer to the response that Deepseek has given. We have various levels, I guess. So you can see I'm at level 2 now. So I would say that Deepseek's response was one of the best ones, and game over. Okay, so the best one was from Deepseek, followed by GPT 4.1 mini, and then Gemini 2.5 Flash. Let's move on to the next question. Next is, create a JavaScript animation of falling letters with realistic physics. Let's see what they come up with. Okay, we have got the responses from all models. Starting off with Gemini Flash, let's copy the code, open up HTML viewer, let's see. Okay, we do have the ball. The physics looks good, but we don't have any kind of letters. Instead, we just have cubicles. Okay, so this is what we have got from Gemini. Let's see what GPT 4.1 mini has come up with. We'll copy the code, open up HTML viewer, let's paste that, and okay, we do have falling letters, but I don't think they are falling realistically, although I would say that it was able to actually fetch the letters, so that is a good thing. Let's see what Deepseek has come up with. Let's run the code, and okay, we do have the falling letters, guys, although it's too fast, I would say. So comparatively we can say that Deepseek's response is the best one, followed by GPT 4.1, and at last we can say Gemini 2.5 Flash. Let's move on to the next question. The next question is, write a Python code for a hollow circle with an opening. There are 2 balls inside it which bounce hitting against the walls. Each time a ball exits, 2 new balls appear. So let's see which one gives us the best response. Let's send this to all 3 models. Okay everyone, we've got the responses. Let's start off with Gemini 2.5 Flash. Let's paste the code and let's run it. And okay, we don't see any kind of border over here, so clearly that is a fail. There's nothing much to say. Let's move on to GPT 4.1 mini. Let's copy the code, let's paste that and let's run it. And okay, that looks absolutely awesome. We can see that when a ball exits, 2 new balls appear, just as we said. It's a perfect response guys, but I would say that we do have a weird issue where you can see the balls are actually getting clumsy and just grouping together to form mess like this. So that is the weird issue that it has. Let's move on to Deepseek. Let's copy the code, let's paste that and let's run it. Okay, we do see 2 balls. Let's see what happens when a ball exits. So you can clearly see a ball is exiting and we have 2 new balls. Let's see again. Okay, when one ball exits we see 2 new balls and nice. Also there is no weird grouping of the balls, so we can say that comparatively I would say Deepseek has the best response, followed by GPT 4.1, and at last we have Gemini 2.5 Flash. So I do have even harder questions, but I think that's an overkill for these models, so we can end the coding test here. So what just happened? All models were able to give us a working snake game, and when we made things harder, we got very creative responses from all models. But as expected, Deepseek had the best response. The snake actually had eyes as well, but Gemini 2.5 Flash was close though. Talking about the dragon question, we could see that GPT 4.1 mini did perform good compared to the others. The front-end capabilities have truly improved in the new 4.1 series. This was followed by Deepseek v3, and then at last we had Gemini 2.5 Flash. Moving on to the Mario question, we got a very basic implementation from Gemini 2.5 Flash, whereas Deepseek's response was the best, and GPT 4.1 mini also looked very good and was a close second. Talking about the falling letters question, again Deepseek was the best, followed by GPT 4.1 mini, and then at last Gemini 2.5 Flash. Next up is the bouncing balls question. Again Deepseek was best, followed by GPT 4.1 mini, and then at last we have Gemini 2.5 Flash. So Deepseek was better in 4 out of the 5 questions, and GPT 4.1 mini was a very close second, getting 1 question better out of the 5. Although we are saying that it's GPT 4.1 mini, but it's more pricier than Deepseek. Talking about Gemini 2.5 Flash, the only advantage it had was in max, where it outperformed both models while still being cheapest. I would say I'm very impressed with GPT 4.1 mini. Although its pricing is kind of steep, but for the price it does perform very good. Yeah, but have to admit that the best price to performance is still Deepseek v30324. So these are my conclusions. The test and the pricing of the models were all mentioned, so you can happily come up with your own conclusions and share with me as well. With that being said, I will catch you guys in the next one.